Hello, everybody. Welcome in. It's Front Office Show, and it's Friday. So you know that means it's Front Office Friday. It's still a little weird to do it all by myself, but here we are. Trevor will be back soon, planning to be back in action for the Team USA game. He'll be doing the streaming version of that on Sunday morning is when Trevor will get back. I was talking to him earlier today. He is rested and ready to go and has all kinds of thoughts. He actually saw Deadpool and Wolverine 2. I saw that as well. I'm going to say this, guys, no spoilers. Don't spoil it for anybody. Absolutely awful if you do that to anybody who hasn't seen the movie. Don't be that guy. You get nothing out of it. You're just being a jerk. I will say this, though, spoiler-free review. I loved it. It was a great time at the movies. I don't know how much it necessarily advances the storylines in the MCU and everything, but it was a blast. I had a great time at the movie. My daughter loved it as well. A lot of violence, as a Deadpool movie is, and they amped up the Deadpoolish jokes, but that's the most I'm going to say. But I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. I had a great time there. So that's where we'll leave it with that till Trevor gets back, and we'll get into that, I'm sure, when he is back. For now, though, we're going to talk some NBA. We can talk some Olympics if you guys want to get into that. Started early because I'm going to go to bed early because I'm going to be up at 5 to watch the Australia-Spain game, 5 p.m. or 5 a.m. rather, Eastern, tomorrow morning. I'm going to get up to watch that game. So I started a little early so we could get going. So I am super excited for the Olympics to get started and kind of go from there. I'm going to start pulling questions right now so we can go. We're going to start out with our guy. Roberto says, Keith, I want to thank you for your encouragement and kind words about sports business classroom I attended this year, and it was awesome. Roberto, man, that makes me so happy to hear that. I'm so glad you went. Glad you got a lot out of it. Hopefully you made some great connections, some lifelong connections with folks, not just those in the NBA, but your fellow classmates as well. And I hope you learned a ton. Matter of fact, I know you did, as long as you were paying attention. I'm sure you were. So that makes me so happy to hear that. I'm hoping to be there next year. Provided everything is settled in our personal life, we'll be out there for sure next year. I will shout out for something similar type event, and it'll be coming up again soon, is the Arizona State University mock trade deadline competition is going to happen again. I will be going to that this year. I'll be headed out to Arizona State Law School, which is in Phoenix. I'll be headed out there to assist with that event and be one of the judges out there. And that's a blast, man. We have a great time. The guys who put that on do a wonderful job. Kyle is the main guy for that. Look it up, Arizona State University mock trade deadline competition. You'll see that, and kind of if you're interested and you're a student, that's something you want to do, definitely worth checking out with that one. All right, let's get into your questions. Kellen says, do you think there'll ever be another Oscar Schmidt, a player who dominates Olympic competition for years and years, yet chooses to never make a run at the NBA? I don't know. We'll see. It's probably unlikely, because I think most guys now get to a point where if they've been doing it long enough, they eventually want to find out, like, could I make it in the NBA? Is that where I want to go? For those who don't know, Oscar Schmidt is a Brazilian player. He played in, I want to say, it was either 5 or 6 Olympic games that he played in for Brazil, several times in the Olympics there. And he is the all-time leading scorer in men's basketball history in the Olympic Games. He was a really good player for a very long time. He was drafted in the NBA, chose not to come because he was wanted to stay in Italy to fulfill his obligation there. And had he accepted at that time, NBA players were not allowed to play in the NBA, not allowed to play for the national teams, because the NBA was the only league where players were barred. So he did not want to miss out on representing Brazil in any of the international competitions. So be the Olympics or the Pan America Games and those kind of things. So he chose not to come over to the NBA. So we'll see, where that all kind of goes from there. And we'll kind of, bummer we missed out on him with that. but I don't think we'll ever see another player, go out that long, especially now you don't have those conflicts where if you play in the NBA, you can go and play for your national team. That rule change, I believe that was in 1989, I want to say, is when they changed that. Might have been 1990. It was in advance, obviously, of the Dream Team. That was the first Olympics they were allowed to have NBA players play in the Olympics. You could have players who played professionally in other leagues, and many did, which is why the United States started to have a little bit of trouble in a handful of Olympic games. But it was that 92 Olympics was the first one NBA players could play in again. Let's see. Ari says, we already talked about Deadpool. A few questions. What teams are potential suitors for Omer Yurtseven and Javon Freeman Liberty? You also wonder if you think Phoenix waves EJ Liddell. The Phoenix one's, that's the easier question. If you didn't see Phoenix and Memphis or Phoenix and Atlanta, rather, are going to hook up on a trade that is going to send EJ Liddell, who went from New Orleans to Atlanta in the DeJounte Murray trade. He's going to get traded to Phoenix, and then David Roddy is headed from Phoenix over to Atlanta. EJ Liddell gets waived. I don't know. I think Phoenix maybe brings him at least into camp, and we'll see kind of where it goes from there. This one was a little bit of an odd trade because Liddell is on a fully guaranteed contract, about $2.1 million, and then Roddy makes, I want to say it's about about $2.8 million for him. So a little bit of a weird trade there. Atlanta takes on a little more money. Another forward in the mix for the Hawks. I don't really get what the thought process is for Atlanta, other than maybe they're looking at it as, hey, we can bring him in, get a look at him, see if he could fit with us, and kind of go forward from there. And then for the Phoenix side, they may rather have the open roster spot, but Liddell being fully guaranteed means they'd have to eat the contract. So I'm not sure. The Yurtseven and Freeman Liberty, I can tell you, a lot of teams are really interested in both players. It was a bit of a surprise that both guys got set free through waivers. Javon Freeman Liberty, a little bit less so. The Jazz were always going to look to maximize their cap space this summer and flexibility with the cap. So what we ultimately saw was they let Yurtseven go too. But teams definitely like him. Teams looking for big man depth are interested. His thing is he wants a real role, is what I've been told. And he's just not sure about catching on with the team just to kind of go to camp and be a camp guy. So we'll see. We'll see how that kind of comes together with him. And then Freeman Liberty definitely is going to have opportunities. He may need to go the two-way route or go the route of kind of coming in as a camp guy first and kind of go from there. So we'll see with this one. Let's see. Bryce is always doing different podcasts. I don't want to bother Bryce too much. And Bryce and I have, we've been in a place where he's going to already do a handful of other podcasts with me on the front office feed. Of the most recent recorded show is Bryce and I are running through all of the Central Division players that were in Summer League that are rostered players. So there's over 30 players from the 5 Central Division teams. We had a blast doing that. We're going to do things like that there. And Bryce is checking in himself, same front office Friday. I love it. Give me your biggest sleeper for the gold medal. I think people are discounting Serbia a little bit. I think some people have I think it's because they're in a group with Team USA, but it's important to remember the top 2 teams from each group get through group play, and then it's the 2 best third place teams. So 8 teams out of the 12 get through. So you just need to be kind of not terrible in group play, and you'll get through. So some people have started, though, to discount Serbia a little bit. And anytime you have Jokic, I think you're in a pretty good place. So we'll see from there. Dark Galaxy, do you think Kerr sticks to the same rotation he has, or if he shrinks it, who do you see being the main players in the rotation? He's still going to play 10 guys. The kind of unfortunate thing with Team USA is none of the coaches can go into this with the mindset of, I've got more than maybe 1 or 2 players who aren't going to play. Because if they go into it with that mindset, they're going to get hammered by those players, and you may lose them in future international teams where they may say, I gave up my whole summer and I didn't play. I don't want to do it again. So they're always probably going to play 10 guys. I don't know that he continues with the hockey sub style where it is 5 in, 5 out. I think you will see that. And then maybe what you'll see is by the time they get around to the fourth quarter, then maybe he may shrink the rotation down. Say, all right, I'm going with my best 6-7 guys here. And that may be more of a game-to-game kind of thing and see who's performing well and how are they playing. So I think it'll be something like that. Let's see. Kind of worried we're going to lose you to NBC or Amazon. They're going to need capologists with the new CBA. I can tell you there's nothing in the works. Nobody's reached out to me. I already worked for NBC, and NBC was very, very kind to me. They kept me on way deeper into the pandemic than they should have. And then eventually we had run out of horse games to cover, and that silly competition, if you remember, where guys were filming themselves playing horse on their telephones. Telephones. I sound like I'm 100 years old. I'm old, but I'm not that old. On their phones. So I don't know. We'll see. With that, but yeah, there's nothing in the works. Nobody's reached out to me. I'm very happy with Spot Track and very happy here doing front office shows. So things are going well right now. So we'll kind of go from there. Jason says we already had Sergio Yule, but he did not dominate in the Olympics. Yeah, he comes to mind as somebody who's been around forever and never came to the NBA. That was kind of Daryl Morey's white whale, if you will, where he was a big push there with that. So yeah, I don't. He just didn't have that same impact that some other guys had. So we'll kind of go from there with that one. Let's keep going. I have no idea who rounds out the top five, Bryce. You'll have to drop it in there, and kind of go from there, and we'll see, where that goes with that. So yeah, I don't know and unfortunately because it's just me flying here, I don't have anything to look it up. I don't have time because there. But if you know the answer, Bryce, put it in the chat, and we'll come back around to it. Jalen asks, any idea where Markelle Fultz and Tyus Jones sign? I think Tyus Jones may ultimately head back to the Wizards. It doesn't sound like anything is happening with him signing with anybody. Doesn't sound like anybody is really willing to go for a long-term contract. Sign and trades seem to be kind of out of the realm right now. So he may just re-sign with the Wizards. Doesn't mean he'll finish the year with the Wizards or anything. That could be one where he gets traded later. But for now, we'll kind of see where he goes. Markelle Fultz, I think, may unfortunately have to be a 1-year minimum guy and just go somewhere. Picks a place where he can actually play and have a real role, kind of coming off the bench as a scoring guy, and just kind of go forward from that. So we'll see what that looks like from there. Tony asked, do I think the Lakers will get a trade done? I don't. I think the Lakers are probably what they are for now. I don't think you're going to see them do anything bigger than what they've already done with that. So yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. So we'll see. With that, but I don't know. All right, Bryce answered the question. Let's see here. Andrew Gaze, Paul Gasol, Luis Scola, Manu Ginobili, Patty Mills, Arvydas Sabonis, KD's down at 11th. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me with the USA guys being lower. One, it's nobody comes in and scores 25 a game for Team USA. That doesn't happen because they share the wealth, spread the wealth too much among the scorers, and then a lot of guys. This is a kind of a interesting spot that KD is going back for another round. A lot of guys do like 1 or 2 Olympics runs for Team USA, and then that's it. Where some of these other guys, they're there every 4 years. So that doesn't necessarily surprise me with that. And then Arvydas Sabonis, I wonder if that is full Olympics or if that is just his scoring for Lithuania. We'll see. I'll tell you, Arvydas Sabonis was, if you ever get a chance, it's on YouTube. Occasionally it gets pulled down and then you can find it again. But there is you can watch the full video of when Arvydas Sabonis was still on the USSR team because Lithuania didn't have independence yet. And they did like a barnstorming tour. And you can watch him dominate David Robinson in that game and get a real sense of what Arvydas Sabonis looked like, why he was like the original unicorn, and why teams are like, this dude is legit like 7'3", 7'4", handles the ball like a guard, passes like a guard, pulls up and shoots 3-pointers off the dribble, all kinds of stuff. It's a really cool look at the way he played back then. So we'll see how that comes together with him. All right, what happens with Golden State's two-way situation in Quentin Post? I don't know. We're all kind of waiting to see. It sounds like they they may still have another trade in them to clear out some salary. We'll see. They haven't given up on the Lauri Markkanen trade. If that clears out salary or roster spot, they may just sign Post to a standard deal. But the two-way spot, their challenge right now, Brittany doesn't know, the Warriors have an open standard roster spot, but they can't fill it because they don't have enough room under the hard cap to even bring in a player on a minimum contract, a rookie minimum even of about 1.1 million. They're only about 500K under that first apron hard cap. And you can't exceed that for any reason. Their two-way spots are all filled. They have all three two-way spots filled. So we'll see what happens with Quentin Post, BC guy. We'll see plans to one way or another be with the organization. This could, if it drags out, turn into a what I like to call a domestic draft and stash, which is they retain his draft rights and he just goes and plays for the G League team and they kind of go from there. So we'll see, but we'll see how that plays out. I know. I'm guessing Tua signed a giant contract with the Dolphins. I have no opinion of this. This is a basketball show, not a football show, and I could really, honestly, it's not something I even remotely care about. Good for him. I mean, $50 million a year is no joke, so good for him, I guess. But I honestly, I don't really care. What non-basketball sport is most interesting for you to view during the Olympics? Yeah, I put this out on Twitter earlier today. I really like swimming a lot. I like track. I like the shorter, like sprints in both of those sports a lot. I think the drama is so fun with those. And then I really enjoy the cycling events too. And then there's like, I shouldn't call it this, but I always call it the weird sports. So things like canoe slalom and those kind of things. Like I'll put on the Olympics and I watch it all day. If the basketball's not on, then I'm just going to watch whatever is on, comes on, and I'm going to watch it and hopefully learn a little bit about a new sport and kind of go from there. How is our handball team? The USA is not very good in handball. I know that historically have not been. Maybe it's different this year. I don't know. But historically, that has not been a spot there. Do you think anyone from the Olympics really pops and ends up in the NBA that is currently on a roster? Yeah, probably not. Most of these guys are now signed somewhere. This is cheating a little bit, but JT Thor and Patty Mills are not signed anywhere in the NBA, but they were both in the NBA last year. I expect them, if they want to play, to pop up on an NBA roster somewhere. Patty Mills might be a later signing, maybe even an in-season signing, just as a veteran guy. And then JT Thor, I think there's a chance we see him show up. He's really played well for South Sudan, and he's done well in the NBA when given time. So I think we could see him show up in the NBA. Mr. The Big Forehead says, any exceptions that can surpass a hard cap? Absolutely not. Nope. Cannot go over the hard cap. There was a situation when they had the LA Clippers, one of the early years of the hard cap. They were hard capped at that time. You could only be hard capped at what was the only tax apron, which is now the first apron. When they were hard capped, they had Tyrone Wallace on a two-way, and they really wanted to get him on a standard contract and bring him over to be in the NBA full time. They couldn't do it. They didn't have enough room. They had to keep delaying. And back then on two-way contracts, you only had 45 NBA days. And by NBA days, everything counted. So if you were up with the NBA team to travel to a game, for a practice, any of that stuff, it counted. Now that has been tweaked. It is now 50 games that players are able to NBA, but back then it was 45 NBA days. And in that case, what happened with Tyrone Wallace was they had to he was flying commercial to games for the Clippers because they couldn't afford to have him travel with the team. In between days, he would come up for the game. They would send him back to the G League, and he'd have to wait and hang out, and then they'd bring him back after that. It was a real mess, that situation. They've tweaked it, but you can't exceed the hard cap by even $1. If you're hard capped at the first apron or the second apron, you cannot go over by $1, whichever one you're hard capped at. Even to re-sign a player, bring in a player, anything, doesn't matter. You have to somehow clear salary space if you want to do that. If the Warriors don't trade for Laurie, do you think they'll make any other moves? I don't. I think they're probably done. I think most teams are probably done. We may see a Laurie Markkinen trade. Maybe we see like a Brandon Ingram trade. New Orleans is still trying to sort out some of the overlapping players on their roster. They're still looking at stuff, but I think most of the big stuff is probably done. That's generally how it is most years. By the time we get to end of July, teams kind of take it off. You'll get the training camp bodies in the door in August, and then things will pick back up in September, leading into training camp. Secure and Bagley. I like that name. That's funny. Wait, they can't even go above first apron with min contracts? Nope. Cannot go over the first apron for anything. I'm with that. So yeah, it's definitely not a thing that anybody can do with that. So yeah, cannot go over. Let's see. Who do I think is the biggest threat to Boston going back to back? Probably still teams like Denver, Oklahoma City. In the conference, a healthy Philadelphia team would be really interesting. The Knicks are interesting, but I think we're in a spot where we could see I think we could see the Knicks be really, really good, but just not quite as good as the Celtics are. The Celtics are really good, and they're running it back with everybody. So I don't know any reason why they shouldn't feel really confident going in, but stuff happens. Guys get hurt, guys get tripped up, and something like that happens. It goes from there. Seems like Sacramento will get a Kuzma deal done. I think the ship has sailed with that. They don't really have a need for him now. They've already now with DeRozan. You can't play him, DeRozan, and Keegan Murray. They're not going to trade Keegan Murray in a deal for Kuzma. They've pretty much said that's not anything they want to do in any realistic deal. So I don't think that's going to be a thing. I think the Kings are done. They did their big move by getting DeMar DeRozan. There's no real reason for them to go out and do something like that. So I think that's going to be where that goes. Let's see. I covered a little bit of this. I really like all of the Olympics. I'm one of those people who I watch 10 minutes of something and I'm screaming at the TV about, all kinds of different stuff there about, hey, I want to go that. I want to, go, they should have done this. They should have made a move here. Oh, they're slow on the turn and stuff. I don't really know what I'm talking about. I'm just yelling at the TV and getting crazy with this. Do you think more NBA assistants will coach in FIBA to build their resumes? Yeah, some. The problem is to coach in FIBA, you're giving up multiple off seasons. A lot of assistant coaches, some of them are either older guys who are established that are probably not going to do it. And then the younger guys in general don't really want to generally give up their summers. They want to keep do what they're doing because they may have young families and those kind of things. So it's a really tough commitment because you got to think about it, right? If you're the head coach of, let's say, I'm making up, but let's say you're the head coach of Montenegro, you are giving up 3 out of every 4 summers at least, because you're giving up the World Cup summer, the Olympic summer, and the Eurobasket summer. So that's 3 out of every 4 you're giving up. You're probably going to have qualifiers for one of those tournaments in the other summer and those kind of things. So a lot of guys, they just don't want to do that necessarily and give up that much of their time to commit to the national team. Where with USA, they don't generally play in other stuff. And when they do play in other stuff, they're content to send lesser players and not even like Steve Kerr didn't coach the lead up to the World Cup qualifiers and all that. That was all Jeff Van Gundy. So I'm not necessarily sure that those guys are going to do that. Puano, I think halfback. I'm guessing halfback. Hit the like button. Yeah, let's get a like spike going. We've got a lot of people watching. We get a lot of people watching over on YouTube too. So let's get the likes up if we can on the video. Just helps more people finding it. So appreciate you saying that. Can you go over by 5 cents, Marcos? You cannot go over by half of a cent. If you're locked into the hard cap at one of the aprons, you can't go over it by anything, and it only works in dollars anyway. NBA deals do, so you wouldn't be able to go over in a dollar with that. So Curry should go to the Lakers because Warriors don't care about winning. Okay, sure. Yeah, I mean, Lakers have nothing they could trade to get him, but sure, why not? NBA front office, you see Kevin Huerter for Cam Johnson swap happening. Do you think Kevin probably gets traded more around the deadline? I think it's probably more at the deadline. I think they'll be engaged with teams, but I don't think you're necessarily going to see him get moved in a situation like that. I think they're probably going to hang on to him for now, and then we'll kind of see where it goes from there. Why don't NBA teams pursue more coaches that have had success overseas and in a FIBA setting? Yeah, it's a good question. Problem is, every time they have, the guys haven't done the same as well in the NBA. Very not necessarily. People like to talk about how different the games are on the court, and there are definitely differences, but I think there is the bigger difference in the is the way everything else is outside of the games. So, for example, most FIBA teams play 2 or 3 times a week at the absolute most, and then they have real practices on the other days in those leagues. Where in the NBA, practice time is maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks. The days in between games are not practice days. People think they play on Tuesday and then play again on Thursday, that they're practicing Wednesday. They don't. You might have a handful of guys come in and get treatment. You'll probably do some film work with some guys, and maybe the guys who don't play regularly get a workout in. But for the most part, if there's only one day, that's kind of a rest recovery film day and not a practice day. Whereas over in Europe, if you're only playing twice a week, they hit those practices and they hit them hard, tends to be. So the European game is still in a lot of ways more like a college game, where it's more of a coach's game than it is a player's game. And a lot of those coaches have not adapted well. The ones who come in often will say they like to kind of be in there mostly where they do they will come in and they will be an assistant coach first to adjust to the NBA to figure it out that way and get their feet wet with it before jumping right into a head coaching position. I have no idea who even runs what in track. I'll have an idea by the time they show it, and then I'll be all in. But whoever's running for the U.S., of course, that's who I'm predicting. I'm mulling on Team USA on everything. We barely had any shows this week when Trevor was gone. Most boring week. 3 shows. I did a live show the other night. I did a recorded show, and this show. So you got 3 shows. It's also, we're at the end of July. We're down to less shows are going to be going on. There's just not much going on to talk about right now. So you're going to probably get some weeks with less shows with this. What are my thoughts on the end of the Sasha Vezenkov saga? Worked out great for everybody, right? Toronto gets out of his contract free and clear, and now they're in a spot there. So we'll see, with him, and then he got to go back to where he wants to go. He's making a ton of money over in Greece where he wants to be. So worked out for everybody. Very happy, for all those guys. Very, very happy for the Raptors. Happy for Vezenkov that he got to go back there and go with that. So we'll see. Yeah, I've seen the Christian Coloco stuff. Hopefully, this anytime it's these things, these are scary situations, and it takes a lot to. I know you said started fitness to play panel process expected to take a few weeks. Sometimes it takes a lot longer than that, and some guys don't ever get cleared. So we'll see. I'm rooting for him. I hope he makes it and kind of come back, but we'll see with that. Is there a trade that the sending and receiving salary are 100% matching, so either team will be hard capped? I think you meant neither team, Howard. Yeah, I mean, if you had 2 guys who both made, let's just say 20 million even, you could swap them and neither team would end up hard capped. It would also be completely legal to do a trade like that. If for anybody could do a trade like that without anything. So just the money has to match even. Otherwise you're going to get hard capped at either the first or the second apron. We haven't done any predictions yet. Trevor and I don't do the early prediction stuff. We'll generally do those when we get into early to mid-October, right before the season started. And we'll kind of go into that. So yeah, we'll see with that. What do you think about Kings salary dumping Sasha and Davion with 2 good second-round picks only for Sasha? Stuff happens. Kings needed to get clear of it. They couldn't have made the other moves that they made if they didn't get that money cleared out. So in a lot of ways, they won. For him to just give it back, it is what it is. There. So I don't think they're worried about it. I think they're looking at it as, hey, we got Monk back, we got Len back, we got DeRozan there. it is what it is, and we kind of go from there. So I don't think they're worried about that at all. For that. Yeah, I mean, now the loss is Davion Mitchell, but I think they were ready to move on anyway. I think he was in and out of the rotation so much last year that that doesn't necessarily matter. Is Porzingis a power forward or a center? He's either one, whatever he needs to be. He's a big. NBA positions now, I generally think of them as bigs, wings, ball handlers, and then swings, which are guys who can play in between, or they're guys that can play in between the guard and wing position, ball handler wing position, or the big wing position. So it can be either one, whatever it is you need. Wouldn't trade kickers be a great way to get contracts to match exactly in the new CBA? Yeah, I mean, maybe, but you're running into it doesn't necessarily always work that way because trade kickers can only be maxed out at 15%. So then 15% of like a $40 million contract is not going to bump it by that much. And remember, it's 15% of the life of the contract. Then so if you've got a 4-year, $100 million contract with a $10 million trade bonus, you're going to get $10 million or 10% trade bonus. You're going to get $10 million, but that $10 million is then spread over the 4 years evenly at $2.5 million a year. So you're making it really complicated in that case. Did they need to clear money? They still could have traded for DeRozan since they traded away $24 million. Yes, but they needed to make sure in the end that they were going to be under the hard caps. Because when you're bringing in a player via sign and trade, which they did, you end up with a first apron hard cap. So they needed to make sure that they were going to get under that. And it just makes everything a little bit easier. You don't have you don't want to be in a spot where it is, all right, well, we want to do this move, but now we got to make this additional move to be able to make that move legal. Sometimes the other team says, we don't want to hold on. We don't want to wait. We don't want to go with that. So, we want to be really, careful with that stuff and kind of, just be extremely cautious with that. So that's kind of where it's at. With that, kind of was what it was. All right, guys, looks like we are slowing down on the question. So I'm going to call it there. I went for a little over 30 minutes tonight, started a little early. I appreciate y'all jumping in with me. And we'll kind of go forward from there. With everything. Trevor will be back on Sunday doing a live stream. His plan is, at least, travel's still a little sketchy right now. So if he doesn't get home, don't hold that against him. But his plan is to do the live stream for the Team USA game. I believe that's at 11:15 a.m. Eastern time on Sunday, USA and Serbia. I'll double check that. Let's make sure. Yes, 11:15 a.m. Eastern time. He'll be doing the live stream on that, and then we'll kind of go forward from there. And then next week we'll get back into our more regular routine, but it probably will not be necessarily 5 days a week. It's going to be a lot of we slow down. This is our only chance to get any kind of time off, and we kind of go for there. So, that's just, the way we work it. But I appreciate y'all hanging out with me here late on a Friday night. I was at Deadpool earlier today, so that's why we didn't do it in the afternoon. And then I had some stuff I had to do this afternoon. So thanks for hanging out on a Friday night. Enjoy the start to the Olympics tomorrow, Australia, Spain, 5 a.m. I'll be up watching. That's why we're cutting it off now, so I can get to bed and get a decent night's sleep before that game. But thanks everybody for hanging out. We'll see you next time.